Welcome to Timeless Mysteries Live. How's everyone today? I do need to fix some things before I forget. I always forget to do this, so bear with me. For whatever reason, whenever I set these up through StreamYard, it automatically turns everything off, and I have to go back in and manually turn everything back on. Which isn't a problem unless I forget to do it, you know. It looks like it's working. So I got some stuff to talk about today. But I think the cool thing that you guys are looking at now is something I didn't know that I could do before. You notice this? Look at this. Boom. Pretty cool, right? Yeah. I didn't know I can do that, but that's cool. I can do it with pretty much anything. Whereas, let me see if I can try. I mean, I'm going to keep trying this stuff too. Like I tried, like I know we do a lot of Chris Watts stuff too, right? So, hey Jennifer, how's it going? Rebranding. Is this what was your channel called? Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. Have you been on my channel before? I can't see here. I gotta close this. No. Deadline Crime. Is this what was it? The podcast one, right? Yeah. Yeah, well today I'm talking about JonBenet. Yes. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Today I'm planning to talk about JonBenet for a little while. I want to look at some videos that I saw, and they're short ones, so hopefully it works without getting me like I don't know how to do the what is it called? Hang on, I'm trying to get this back to the other way. This. Boom. Yeah, see? Like that is cool, right? That's my green screen. But this is my video, but I've got some actual other videos I wanted to share. Plus I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about if I get around to it. I don't know. I'm kind of tired like always. But sometimes I feel like if I'm not doing something, I'm just wasting my time, you know? Let me see if I can find the stuff I was going to read. But I found a couple small channels that have some pretty interesting JonBenet stories. It's weird because, my video, this one, let me see, it got, shoot, I can't even see it there. Well, maybe it got very few views, and looks like it's not going to show me on this page. But it got like a couple hundred views, I think. But every other JonBenet Ramsey video that I've seen has like 10,000, 12,000, 40,000. And I don't know why, what the difference is, but I did find a couple smaller channels that have, decent videos, but not a lot of views either. But it's a really interesting story. I mean, it's been talked about for 30 years, and just sorting through my stuff here. And I know it's late and there probably won't be very many people here, but they're going to wish that they were. I hope. Let me see. Nope, that's not it. Well, I did write a bunch of stuff just for this live stream. It's basically a long, like, monologue of me rambling about the case. That was my plan initially, was to read that. which I could do that. Pretty easy to do. But I wanted to show some videos too. Maybe talk about mine. I'm thinking about trying to do some reaction videos, but I just don't feel comfortable doing them. So that's why I haven't done them yet. Because I've had like a couple people tell me, no, you can't do that with my content. And I'm like, really? It's not going to hurt anything. And then, the other times when nobody even responds, I get dinged with these little audio copyright things from different music that was used, and it demonetizes the video. I don't know. I've been trying to like figure out a way to see how it goes without, messing up my channel too much. So, um, oh my God. Trying to get my Word document so I can read it on camera. But if this doesn't work, I'm just going to play some videos and we can all watch them. And I don't really care if I have to demonetize my video so you guys can watch them too. But some of these smaller channels, when I was a small channel, I wish that somebody would notice me and say, hey, I like your work. So I've been doing that lately. I think I don't think it hurts anything on my channel. And I think it helps people, gives them a little motivation to try, to keep working, because it really gets hard when you're doing YouTube. You put a lot of work into this stuff, and, nobody notices sometimes. And everybody tells you, hey, well, that's common, but it doesn't make it feel any better, I've almost got this formatted. I don't have a teleprompter, but what I can do is shrink my text down to the size of my camera, like this big on the screen. And then if I put it above it, it kind of looks like I'm, not reading the screen like this, like the whole time. But it's something I've just recently figured out that I can do. That's kind of makes it cool to read the stuff. But at the same time, if you get this too small, you can't see, there's good and bad that comes with stuff like this. And also, if you've got like a bunch of information and you got one little paragraph you need to read, and you do this and you format it, and then you shrink everything to where you need it to be, and then you can't figure out what page you're on. And it's not fun. But yeah. So I'm kind of waiting to see if anybody's going to show up here, guys. I'm hoping I've got a few of you here. But I do like your new name, Jennifer. I think it's awesome. Well, I don't know. I can help you brainstorm if you like. I don't think I'm going to rebrand, even though there's another Timeless Mysteries that's got like 10,000 subscribers now. That's basically stole my introduction. And like a lot of you are telling me, hey, do you got another channel? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, is it also Timeless Mysteries? And it is not also Timeless Mysteries, though I used to do content like that. So where's everyone tonight? It's supposed to be Friday night. You guys should be up late, right? You're probably out having fun, right? Yeah. I mean, I would be too, but that's expensive. So, oh yeah. Let me see if I can show you guys what I can do with this thing, this visual effect thing. Watch this. Where'd it go? Boom. Isn't that cool? They're like, whoop. Huh? Right behind me. That's cool, right? I mean, I guess it's not that cool, but I never used it before. like I've seen this before where it's got this thing, you know, and I guess that's okay. It looks better than my room with my tiny little space, but yeah. I don't know. I like I think this looks cool, like really cool with my logo like that. And if I took some time, I could put a whole bunch of this stuff on here. Like let me add this one. I know I've told you guys about this before, but it's not going to let me share the whole thing. But I've wrote a book and it's published. I'm going to share the scary part here in a sec. Wow. But it is on it's on Kindle. If anyone's interested, ask me. I'll share the link. I've sold a huge amount of books so far, a whole 2. So I haven't tried to. I mean, I blame it on this, but I haven't marketed it at all. So I think you have to pay to market your books if you actually want to sell them. You know, that was a test book. It is well written. It is short stories, you know, but anyways, I'm going to play a little bit of this video. This is my video. And you guys can let me know what you think. And
it was a big story, right? Just a lot of chaos.
The JonBenet Ramsey murder.
They made up their mind on day one that I killed my
3 decades.
I'd like to know what you guys think about this, because
anybody would be that evil.
Who do you think killed JonBenet Ramsey?
Law enforcement never opened that door.
But now detectives are doing what they should have done in the first place.
There was no doubt in your mind that a stun gun was used.
I was about as sure as I could be.
Following the evidence.
I want to hear your theories in the comments. Yeah, let's talk about your
On
theories
Christmas
right
night,
now.
6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey fought to stay awake. She didn't want the day to end. The excitement of presents, laughter, and holiday magic lingered as she slipped off to sleep, dreaming of the adventures she'd have with her new toys in the morning. For her, it was a perfect Christmas. By dawn, the magic was shattered, and this story would become one of the most infamous murder mysteries in modern memory. Fast forward 28 years, we're still drowning in rumors, theories, and unanswered questions. Welcome to Timeless Mysteries. Please like and subscribe. Today we're going to examine the evidence, look at the major theories, and tackle the one question that has haunted America for decades. Who killed JonBenet Ramsey? On December 26, 1996, Patsy Ramsey desperately called 911, reporting that her daughter was missing. When Detective Linda Arndt arrived on the scene, Patsy showed her a 2.5-page ransom note demanding $118,000, the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus. From the moment investigators stepped into the house, the crime scene felt orchestrated.
See, this lady, I think, was the big problem. And we'll talk about this. This lady was the detective. And I think
I've done this.
Really blurry picture of her, but
her daughter was missing. When Detective Linda Arndt arrived,
yeah, it's not a good picture of her, but yeah, she, I think, was the big reason why nobody knows who the killer is. I don't think it was intentional, you know, but I also think that letter that was found, I think it was some kind of, I don't know what it was. I think if you take out that, if you don't even talk about that, you know, everything else makes more sense. So I don't know where that letter came from or why it was there, but anyway, let's see. Where is that? So this is, this channel is, you know, they've only got a couple hundred subscribers. So if you guys see this video, I'd like for you to go to their channel, True Crime Lovers, and, you know, let them know that I sent you there. their content's pretty good. There's not that much content yet, but I'm pretty sure this is. I think it's actually called a garrote. Um, just to let you know, I just liked the video. Oh, it's not even sharing. Oh my god. Hold on. Let me fix this. Uh, wow. I had a button that said share this screen instead, and that's what I did. So let me start this over. I apologize,
which
guys. This
includes
is a short video. This is a small channel. Um, I have liked their
what is
video,
the
and I
significance of the
suggest you
garrote
see.
in the JonBenet Ramsey case? What is the significance of the garrote in the JonBenet Ramsey case? This question takes us to the heart of a tragic and complex story. The garrote is a key piece of evidence in this case. It was the instrument used to strangle 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey, indicating a deliberate and violent act rather than an accidental death. Interestingly, the garrote was not a simple piece of rope. It was crafted from a broken paintbrush handle and a piece of cable. This suggests that the killer made it on the spot, highlighting a level of premeditation. The presence of JonBenet's hair caught in the windings of the garrote cord shows that it was tightly used to strangle her. The marks on her neck indicate she struggled, revealing the brutality of the attack. From a criminology standpoint, the construction of the garrote and the specific knots used are important forensic clues. Experts analyze these knots to uncover details about the killer's skills or background.
So I'm just going to talk about this a little bit. I think they've got a lot of really good information on this, and that garrote uh, is uh, interesting. First of all, the big reason why it's an interest to me is because on the autopsy report, the there's like a discrepancy on whether or not she was strangled or bludgeoned, which thing actually, you know, ended her life. It's almost like there was two violent acts that happened at the same time, or one violent act, was done to finish the job. I mean, it's if you think about this story as it supposedly happened. The mother woke up, she finds this letter on the stairs. She discovers her daughter gone. She calls the police, and then all of this stuff happens. The police arrive, they check the house, they don't see anything. They let the Ramseys have their friends show up and, for support or whatever. Meanwhile, the body's actually in the house. Uh, that police officer who was there didn't search the basement. And at some point, she told Mr. Ramsey that he could go with his friend and just, double check everything, go look through everything again and see if anything looks out of the ordinary. Well, he immediately goes to the basement, and he immediately discovers his daughter, and he reacts like a father would, or mother, any parent or close family member who finds an injured body on the floor. You just like try to take everything off and uh So that's how the body was discovered. And, all of the evidence was disturbed in that moment. Um, but the garrote is, one of those clues is like, why did that happen? Why was there also, the trauma to the head? They suspect it was from a flashlight. Both were significant injuries. I think they do have this strangulation as the actual cause of death, though the other incident likely would have also killed her. But there's a lot of videos out there on this that have kind of different, they go through kind of different scenarios. I think the one on Netflix is pretty good, and it talks about that. And they also mentioned a lot of what I wanted to talk about tonight with their private detective, the stun gun, and all of that stuff. But if you guys get a chance, go to True Crime Lovers. They're a very small channel. Just give them some support, like, subscribe, let them know that, leave them a comment, tell them, keep up the good work. They've got several videos. They're pretty decent. With every new channel, you gotta, keep, doing it, and then you just keep getting better. And I think they're starting off really well. This other, actually, I guess I'll just go ahead and, yeah. So there's my little background that I was going to use as a thumbnail, but it's too similar to another thumbnail I made, so I picked a different one. But I can see there's a few of you in the chat, but I don't see anyone saying anything. I do appreciate the support. So if you're here, just hit that like button. Let YouTube know that I'm, interesting, that I'm here. It's a free and easy way, to support my channel. And I also appreciate that you're watching. So I know we've been at this for a couple 20 minutes. I'm getting some sunshine glare off of my TV screen, but yeah. Welcome to Timeless Mysteries Live. I'm Robert, your host. And today we're going to walk the knife's edge between what's been proven and what's possible in one of the most infamous unsolved cases in our lifetimes. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and get ready for a deep dive into mystery. Today we're talking conspiracy theories surrounding a case that I think most of you already know pretty well. But how can a small girl with such a bright future have the light snuffed out while everyone's asleep in their house? It just doesn't make sense. We all know the story of JonBenet. I don't even have to say her last name. I know it's on the screen, but even if I just said JonBenet, you instantly picture her in your mind. Everyone hears that name and they just recognize her immediately. She was, a 6-year-old beauty pageant princess. She was very good at that. Very cute kid. She melted, hearts long before she lost her life. I know there's millions of people who know her now and still adore her. But even before then, she had fans. She was good at what she did. She was, I don't know. It looks like she was basically doing these singing songs and dances and things. So 7 weeks after JonBenet's murder, a young man in Boulder died under abrupt and mysterious circumstances. Notably, This was just one day after the district attorney went on the TV and said that we're closing in on the killer in the JonBenet Ramsey case. Is that a coincidence, or is this maybe the missing piece to the puzzle? That's the question that I'm exploring today. Is this other case related? And if it is, why haven't we been able to get a confirmation who the actual killer is? So get comfortable and let's walk that fine line between what we know and what we think we know. I'll kind of go through the story just in case you're not familiar. Christmas night, 1996. Boulder, Colorado, a wealthy, picture-perfect town nestled against the Rocky Mountains. The Ramseys' home was a large Tudor-style house in an upscale neighborhood full of holiday decorations and, family festivities. JonBenet had spent Christmas Day with her parents, Patsy and John Ramsey, and her 9-year-old brother, Burke. They went to a friend's house for a party that evening. They carried a sleeping JonBenet to bed when they got home. All seemed calm, and a light snow was falling outside. But by the next morning, chaos erupted. Before dawn on December 26th, Patsy stumbled upon something horrifying on the staircase. It was a ransom note. It was a huge ransom note. It was 3 pages. It was handwritten, and it claimed that JonBenet had been kidnapped. And it oddly demanded that a very specific number that they wanted. And that sum was $118,000, which was Mr. Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. This was a wealthy family, and I can't imagine, getting a Christmas bonus like that. But, that's what he got for his Christmas bonus. And that was the specific sum that was requested to safely get JonBenet returned to them. So in a panic, about 5:52 a.m., Patsy dialed 911, frantically reporting that her daughter was missing and that she'd found this ransom letter. Sorry, I'm just going to change that a bit. And so the Boulder police arrived quickly to what they believed was a kidnapping scene. The Ramseys' friends began, coming into the house to support the distraught parents. The family's large red brick home was filled with dozens of people, friends like the Whites and the Fernies. There was a pastor. There was eventually multiple officers. In the flurry of activities, evidence was inadvertently trampled and, tidied away. The family friends even started cleaning the kitchen counters and, wiping away any potential fingerprints, not realizing that this was a crime scene. And remember, the police are there and they haven't cordoned off this place. So in those first critical morning hours, the police did a cursory search of the home, but found nothing. They did not seal off the house properly. One seasoned reporter later remarked that the police did a terrible, terrible job securing the scene. People were going in and out of the house, trying to help Patsy. And, I guess the big thing is if there was evidence, it was gone. Or, they had to rule out the people who were there once they did find those fingerprints that belonged to them. For several hours that morning, the Ramseys and the police waited in dread for a kidnapper's call that never came. It is important to note that the ransom letter did say, do not call the police, that they'll know if they do, and that if they did, they would kill JonBenet. I believe that she was already dead when they found that letter. But, in the off chance that she wasn't, could they have possibly, saw that the police arrived and brought her body back in with all the other people coming in and out of the house? Guys, I know there's a few of you here. I'd really like to know what you guys think about this case. There is so many conspiracy theories on this. There's no way to know what was missed. I think the Ramsey's private investigator had the most information, and he didn't believe that it was a family member. He believed that it was actually, a third party, somebody who came into the house. I'll get into that a little bit more. The one detective, Linda Arndt, remained at the house, and about 10 a.m., the deadline in the ransom note passed, and there was no phone call. Arndt noticed something strange. JonBenet's parents didn't seem to react at all to the missed deadline. There was no frantic outburst or rush to call the police again. If there was police already there, why would they need to call the police? But you know what I mean? There was no like rush to act fast when that time passed. And, I agree that does sound a little bit suspicious, but I'll talk about my thoughts, later on. But, this particular thing raised a lot of suspicion. But in the moment, everyone was operating in a fog of fear. Everyone was confused. There was a lot actually going on in the house. Nobody was standing there watching the clock either, By early afternoon, Detective Arndt made a fateful decision. With nothing happening and the unease was finally beginning to build, she asked John Ramsey and his friend Fleet White to search the house top to bottom for anything unusual, perhaps hoping they might spot a clue that the police missed. Why she didn't have an officer go with them, I'm not sure. Why she would ask, somebody she felt suspicious about to go look around the house, I don't know that either. It's an odd thing. I am not a police officer. I don't know police procedure other than what I've seen in crime scene shows. But I know a lot of those try to be accurate. And I'm pretty sure like the first thing you do in any crime is you don't let people go in there and you don't let people go look around. Because if they are potentially, everyone is potentially a suspect until they rule out everyone. And that's how they should have responded to this scene. That's not how it was responded to. But yeah, guys, make sure you're hitting that like button. I haven't heard from any of you guys in the chat, and that's fine. But just try to hit that like button every so often. Let the YouTube algorithm know that I'm here, that my content is somewhat interesting. Hopefully, you like it a lot. But this case just blows my mind. Every time I read about it, everything about it blows my mind. And, I was a kid when this happened, and I still remember seeing this girl's face on, the newspaper things, the magazines, the paper magazines, the tabloid things in, little stores like Walgreens and Rite Aid, things, they were just right up there by the register, and like all the time, everywhere you went, you saw this girl's face, and everyone wanted to know who did it, why. And it's 2025. It's August 22nd, 2025, and we still don't know who did it. So at 1:05 p.m. on December 26th, John Ramsey let out a scream from down in the basement. "Oh my God," he said. And upon finding his 6-year-old daughter lying on the cold floor under some sheets in the basement, she was wrapped in some kind of like white sheet or blanket, with her favorite Barbie nightgown. Her wrists were tied together. Her above her head, her mouth was covered with duct tape, and around her neck was that crude garrote, like in the video that I had showed you. There was a length of nylon cord that was tightened with a broken piece of a paintbrush, that was later linked to Patsy's art supplies. But John frantically ripped the tape from his little girl's mouth and tried to loosen the cord that was digging into her neck. I'm sure he thought that maybe she was still alive when he did that. I can't imagine what it would be like, and I don't want to think about it too hard, but I can't imagine it not happening that way. I don't think it was an act at all, the way it was described. But he laid her down on the floor near the Christmas tree, and Patsy threw herself over her daughter's body, and she was sobbing and praying. It was a horrific scene when this happened. Linda Arndt saw something different. She thought felt like it was rehearsed. I didn't see it. They didn't have everything wasn't recorded. So, it's just, I have never thought that it was the parents or any of the family members. I've always thought that somebody did come in through that basement window. I think I am going to play a little more of the video I made several months ago. This is a pretty old video, but I made it. I wrote it. I recorded it. I just got to get it to share again. Nope, that's not it. Linda Arndt is this image here.
Arrived on the scene. Patsy showed her a 2.5-page ransom note demanding $118,000, the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus. From the moment investigators stepped into the house, the crime scene felt orchestrated. The note's length and dramatic language instantly raised suspicions. Ransom notes are usually short and direct. The Boulder police initially searched the entire house and treated this missing person case as a kidnapping. Several hours later, Detective Arndt, the only officer left in the house, told John to search the property again and look for anything out of the ordinary. That's when he found JonBenet's body in the basement. He frantically called out for help and began removing the bindings, hoping she was still alive. As the father of JonBenet emerged from the basement, it was clear now. This was no kidnapping, this was murder. JonBenet was a well-known child beauty pageant star. These pageants can be a magnet for dangerous individuals who fixate on performers in ways that spiral into obsession. In JonBenet Ramsey's case, she could have attracted a pageant stalker or a pedophile. Experts in forensic psychology often describe pedophiles as methodical planners who watch from the sidelines, taking note of a child's schedules, family dynamics, and even the layout of their home. Their psychological makeup is marked by a grandiose sense of ownership, an unsettling belief that the child is somehow destined to belong to them. This delusion feeds a growing fantasy that can evolve from admiring a child performer to plotting a very real abduction or attack. Once fixated, such predators often engage in grooming behaviors, either directly by attempting to form a bond with the child or the child's family, or indirectly by studying every detail they can find in fan pages, pageant schedules, and local news stories. When stalkers' motives cross over from pedophilic desire to outright sadistic rage, the result can be horrifying. Any resistance from the victim or any obstacle that gets in the way of domination can trigger brutal force. Did the killer fantasize about her for weeks or months before the final violent encounter? Pageant stalkers have been known to conduct surveillance for weeks, even months, learning exactly when a household is most vulnerable. Such predators excel at leaving minimal physical evidence. There is a high probability that someone intimately tracked JonBenet's pageant life and then slipped into her home. If they were in the home, the question is, was it the first time they had entered the home? How did Detective Linda Arndt miss finding the body in the first place? She did search the home. Why would a detective allow a father to search his own house? JonBenet was found with her hands bound. Duct tape covered her mouth, a garrote. A device constructed from a broken paintbrush handle and a length of cord was tightly wound around her neck. This makeshift tool wasn't a haphazard creation. It was deliberate, designed to exert intense pressure and cause lethal asphyxiation. Similar in mechanics to a tourniquet, a garrote applies a controlled, focused force, cutting off both airflow and blood circulation to the brain. The brutality of strangulation with such a device cannot be understated. This is not an instant method of killing. It is slow, excruciating, and torturous. The cord would have dug deeply into JonBenet's delicate skin, leaving clear evidence of the tremendous force applied. Experts have suggested that such a method could involve intermittent tightening and loosening, potentially reviving the victim.
And that point right there, that is the most terrifying point for me. I can't imagine how they could do this to somebody. But if you read about the BTK killer or the Golden State Killer, they did this. They used this type of device to strangle people, and then they would bring them back to life and do it again. It's scary. It's just very disturbing. But guys, it's been about 45 minutes. I don't know. I don't have many of you here. Well, I'll just do a little bit more, and then if you guys want to dive into this, I really was thinking, I would get a discussion out of this with you guys. Let me see, where was I? So yeah, a lot of what we just saw in the video I just talked about, and the initial crime scene is just horrific. And, if it was, bad police work, I don't think it was intentional at all. There was a time where I thought maybe the police officer intentionally did that. Maybe she suspected someone that she knew, and, she intentionally allowed the crime scene to be disturbed. But the more I think of that, I just think she wasn't prepared for this. She didn't. She should have had backup there, and she should have just waited until they got there rather than, going through the house herself. Boulder had never seen a case like this. JonBenet's murder was the only homicide in Boulder in 1996. As none of the Boulder detectives had been assigned or handled murder cases before, let alone, one that would become so infamous and well known. But outside of the house, the address was 755 15th Street. The news crews began to gather as word began to spread. And within a few days, the nation was gripped by this tragic death. This was a beauty queen. And I mean, her, like, yeah, when there's certain people, they just have this star quality. And if they're a child or a child actor, we all have adored child actors at some point. It was just easy to, see this person and want to know what happened and why. Why could somebody so, amazing and innocent, suffer something so brutal and tragic? It just doesn't make sense. And people wanted to know. But this went viral before we had a word called, the viral word wasn't even a word yet. But it caught on. It made national news almost immediately. In 1996, the tally of children who got murdered in 1996 in the entire country was 804. But there was a journalist who noted that grimly. The country didn't care about any of them. They cared about JonBenet mostly because of that star quality that she has. The bizarre ransom note. I like initially, like, that note was like all of the evidence that I needed. It's weird in so many ways. And it's almost like, if you look at any other ransom note that's ever been like made public, it's like, those cutouts of magazines with, like, a few sentences, maybe a few words on there, money by 9 p.m. or else, you know what I mean? This was 3 pages long. It was almost like somebody was writing a story. And I don't know that this note was actually written that day. I think maybe it was written at some other point in time and somehow was found there. Whether or not it was JonBenet's mother, as they suggest, the handwriting is very similar. I don't think that this note really had anything to do with the case. I think it was put there to kind of, to change the narrative of the crime scene, and it worked because they thought it was a ransom, not a murder case. If they'd have treated this like a murder case from the very beginning, everything would have probably been different. But it was almost like a bad fiction, write up of what you imagine a ransom note would have in it. I wish I had some actual ransom notes that I could show you the difference, but I don't. Here, I'm going to play a little more of this, and I think I'm going to go for about 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to call it a night. But yeah, I don't know. I probably should save this case and talk about it some other day when there's more of you on. And there it is.
Multiple times before death finally occurred. If this was the case, it suggests a chilling intent to prolong terror and suffering, and a killer who thrives on domination at a level that is difficult to comprehend. The injuries to JonBenet's body tell of the growth profile response to her death. Investigators, armchair detectives, and other true crime enthusiasts. Still, there is no definitive evidence proving that there were two killers. The FBI,
that's another thing, another conspiracy theory that maybe there was more than one person. When you have two injuries like that, it's almost like, if there was two people, and one of them didn't get to commit the final act of murder and wanted to do something violent also, that could explain the two like traumatic injuries that I think the autopsy report says that they can't decide for sure which was the cause of death, but most likely it was the choke, the garrote. I've forgotten that I even considered that. Let me see. At the beginning, I mentioned that other child who died, and the other guy that was investigated for that. And I don't know where I got the rest of that in here somewhere, but I don't know. This isn't very well organized. It's supposed to be a long thing that I go through, and then I finally get to it, but I was going to skip some stuff. But if you haven't watched the documentary on Netflix, it's really good. And you gotta hear what Detective Lou Smith has to say. He was a renowned Colorado Springs homicide detective, whom the Boulder DA brought out of retirement for a few months after this murder. Smith initially also thought the parents were guilty, but as he started reviewing the evidence, that started to change. What he found out turned him into the prominent intruder theory. That's the theory that I kind of lean towards. I think that the DNA got mishandled. So the evidence that they have that they tested has the wrong DNA on it. And that's why none of these people who have confessed or have been suspected, the DNA doesn't match. But I know that the John Carr guy, I forget his middle name, he was actually at the Ramsey's house, physically seen by other people. He confessed to murdering her, but his DNA didn't match. So Smith was the one that noticed the old broken basement window in the Ramsey's home, the one that John Ramsey himself said was open on that morning, December 26th. And then it got closed during his initial search. And, eventually it came to be that there was a grate outside of that window. This is like it's like a basement, but there's like a window at ground level outside that you can climb in through a grate. It's important to note that officers early on said that there were no footprints in the snow. It later came out that the area around the basement window had no snow cover at all, which means you wouldn't be able to see a footprint in the snow. The yard wasn't uniformly blanketed in a way that would capture every step of somebody either. So if there was somebody walking around the house that night, it's not likely to have been captured by the snow. And we're talking like not even an inch of snow. This is a very light snowfall. It would be enough to see footprints if the snow was evenly distributed. But they did find a mysterious footprint inside of the house. It was a partial boot print found on the basement wine cellar room floor near where they found JonBenet's body. The print was later determined to have come from a specific type of high-tech hiking boots, a brand and style that no one in the Ramseys' home owned. That's a concrete piece of evidence of an unknown person who was actually in the room. It has never been matched definitively to anyone, any particular individual. Obviously, they checked everyone who was there that day, and it wasn't something that anyone seemed to have had. I'll actually in part of my larger discussion, I'll come back to that because that is a very significant clue, I think. There were also 2 small marks on JonBenet's skin. They were rectangular and reddish abrasions. One was on her lower back and the other was on her cheek. They looked like burn marks from a stun gun. He theorized that the intruder could have used a stun gun to subdue and control JonBenet. This is a small child. Something like that would instantly make them silent and unconscious. How does a small child not, alert her parents? Well, that's a good way for that to happen. They see somebody, they're about to scream before they can. They're rendered unconscious almost instantly from a stun gun like that. I've seen the pictures of this, and it does look very consistent with that. I think ultimately it got kind of, the police didn't actually like that idea. They didn't find any real evidence to prove it one way or the other. But Michael Helgoth, this is the guy. Okay, this is the guy that I think got away with murder. He was a 26-year-old man living on the fringes of Boulder in the mid-90s. He worked as a mechanic at the family's junkyard and auto salvage at his family's junkyard. This is the guy that I think may have gotten away with it. But the big question that always comes to my mind is that DNA evidence that they have that, is it the actual DNA evidence? That they have the right evidence that they're looking at? But Helgoth was a troubled soul. He was a hellraiser. He wasn't a polished professional or a close friend to the Ramseys or anything. He was an outsider, rough around the edges, living in a small shack on the salvage yard property that his parents owned. He was dealing with personal demons. He had a history of getting into trouble. Nothing like the murder charge or anything, but there wasn't. But it basically he'd been around the family enough that he wasn't a complete stranger. Um, at first glance, Helgoth's life and the glittery world of the Ramseys would seem worlds apart. So how did his name even come up in the case? It turns out mostly through tips. The work of those private investigators that the Ramseys hired in the months following JonBenet's death, the Ramsey family bought their own team of private investigators to pursue leads that they felt the police had been ignoring. One of those investigators was Ollie Gray, and he zeroed in on Helgoth as a potential suspect. Why? Because some disturbing information began trickling in about him. A man named John Kennedy, who worked with Helgoth at the salvage yard, came forward with some eye-opening recollections. Kennedy reported that about a month before JonBenet's murder, Helgoth had told him that he and a partner were going to come into a great deal of money, around $50,000 or $60,000 each. Now, remember that ransom note that I said I would come back to. Helgoth talked about that upcoming big score as if some lucrative deal or something like was on the horizon. Kennedy didn't know exactly what Michael meant at the time, but after JonBenet was killed and that $118,000 ransom note became the center of the investigation, that comment suddenly seemed chilling. Two people getting $50,000 to $60,000 each. That's roughly $118,000 split in half. And remember, I did mention there could possibly have been two people in that home based off the two types of killing methods that happened that night. Could it be a coincidence? Yes, but is it? I don't know. It's really, it really stands out to me. Kennedy also recalled an extremely creepy comment from Helgoth. They were walking together one day, and Michael casually mused aloud, "I wonder what it would be like to crack a human skull." Now, if that's not like something the police need to know, I don't know what is. At the time, Kennedy said he was taken aback. It seemed such like a bizarre statement. It was morbid, and it was totally out of the blue. But after JonBenet was found with her skull indeed cracked by a brutal blow, that memory took on a whole new light. So I know what you're thinking. Well, why did he get away? Why didn't the police investigate him? But her injury was exactly the sort of skull cracking that this guy Helgoth talked about. For Kennedy, that was no idle, offhanded remark. He grew convinced that Helgoth was involved in the JonBenet's murder. He relayed all of this to the investigators, though the Boulder police didn't really take it seriously. Helgoth's lifestyle and interests did raise an eyebrow, according to Kennedy and others. Helgoth had a dark streak. He allegedly enjoyed talking about killing, and he had this fascination with harming animals. Reports later surfaced that he had shot stray dogs for fun. He also had this odd obsession with little girls. One report said that he collected Barbie dolls, and he had shown suspicious interest in other local child murder case from 1993. In fact, Helgoth kept news clippings about an unsolved 1993 abduction and murder of a little girl, also near Boulder. Why would a 26-year-old man collect articles about a slain 5-year-old? Again, not proof of anything by itself, but it's certainly not normal behavior. To friends and coworkers, Helgoth was a ticking time bomb, someone who loved weapons, talking about violence. He had a lot of pent-up anger. Shortly after JonBenet's death, something seemed to change in him. A friend later recounted that Helgoth had been excited about that money, as I said earlier. That was right before Christmas in 1996. But after New Year's in 1997, Helgoth became suddenly depressed and agitated, as if whatever plan he anticipated had gone wrong. Christmas of 96, he's excited for the money. A month later, he's depressed and agitated. Is it a coincidence? Again, this is a conspiracy theory, guys. I mean, this guy was not investigated enough. Now, here's where Helgoth becomes even more entwined with the Ramsey's case and the timeline. On February 13th, 1997, Boulder's district attorney, Alex Hunter, held a press conference that electrified everyone following the case. In a message clearly directed to the unknown killer, Hunter looked into the TV cameras and said, "The list of suspects narrows. Soon there will be no one on the list but you. We will see that justice is served, and you will pay for what you did." Now, that statement is chilling to me. I'm going to read it again because I don't think I did it justice. This sounds like somebody knows something and they really believe they're going to catch someone. The DA said this into TV cameras. You can find clips of it. The list of suspect narrows. Soon there will be no one on the list but you. We will see that justice is served, and you will pay for what you did. It was a dramatic warning for sure. It was taunting the killer, letting the killer know that we know who you are and we're about to get you. The very next day, on February 14th, Michael Helgoth was found dead in his home. He had apparently died from a gunshot wound. Boulder police quickly labeled it as self-inflicted. There was a gun found near his body, and there was no signs of a struggle. And because Helgoth wasn't publicly on their radar for the Ramsey case at the time, it didn't even make the news. There was a brief obituary. And if you go back to the beginning of this, this is the guy. This is, is it just another sad story of a sad young man? Or is it linked to this case? I'm not the only one that thinks this. There's others. And Lou Smith, that was the detective that worked heavily with the Ramseys. He came across Helgoth's police report a short time later, and his instincts perked up immediately. Here was a guy in Boulder who died right after the DA basically said, "We're about to get you." And if you're a killer, I don't think you want to go to jail. I mean, maybe you do, but I think he was scared. "We're about to get you." killer. That's more importantly, at Helgoth's death scene, the police had photographed some items that were just downright spine tingling, given what we've discussed. He had a pair of high-tech boots. Remember that unidentified boot print? They found those boots in his house. He had a stun gun. There's just a lot of evidence that just got overlooked. The two physical clues that Lou Smith believed an intruder left at the Ramsey's house were both present among Helgoth's possessions. Investigators learned that he had owned a baseball cap with the letters SBTC on them, the same random letters that were signed on the ransom note, even. Like, it gets weirder. It's like, why haven't we talked about this more? It could be a coincidence. Again, it's a weird coincidence, but it could be. Those letters may have, stood for something like a club name or something, or it was a logo or a brand unrelated to the ransom note. But what do they mean on the ransom note? But if you add up all of these things together, the boots, the stun gun, SBTC on a baseball cap, it was enough that Smith basically begged the rest of the police task force to take a harder look at Helgoth. And then there's the manner, I think I already said that, the details of his death were scrutinized. The more they looked into his death and how he died, the less it actually looked like it was self-inflicted, which is weird, right? It was a shot to his torso. And the bullet had entered in from the left side, entered from the left and angled to the right, yet Helgoth was right-handed. It's impossible for a right-handed person to shoot themselves in the left side, which I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be, to be honest. But that's what they said. There's a lot of reports on this, guys, and I think it makes a lot of sense to me. So guys, I don't know. I can keep going. There's a whole lot more stuff here on this guy. John Kennedy, that was Helgoth's coworker. He definitely believed that somebody silenced Helgoth. This is the guy that thought he had something to do with JonBenet's murder, and he felt that somebody had killed him. He claims that Helgoth left behind a videotape, a tape recording in which he confessed to killing this girl. According to Kennedy, this tape was Helgoth's insurance policy, and it's out there somewhere, but it's been overlooked or lost by the police. That sounds almost too sensational to be true, but it is. There has been no such tape ever publicly surfaced officially, but it is a significant rumor that has been going around for a while. Even Ollie Gray, that was the other private investigator, he hinted that Helgoth's family might have possessed the tape confession. But again, nothing has ever been verified or released to the public. It's one of those tantalizing stories that really haunt this case. I just can't imagine that. If there's a tape out there with somebody confessing, and, if he was splitting the money, who was the second guy? Because I bet that the DNA that they found belonged to that person. We just don't know. It's never been produced. No one's ever claimed to have heard it other than um, that one guy saying that he knows that there was a tape. But at this point, it must be treated as, anecdotal. It may contain some truth, or it could be just complete fabrication. There's no way to know for sure. What we do know is that Helgoth's death effectively removed him from the investigation, and it removed him very neatly. When Boulder authorities eventually tested his DNA against the crime scene DNA, it didn't match. So officially, he got cleared as a suspect because of the DNA. But they got so much wrong with the crime scene. What if the DNA that they sampled is wrong? Or what if there was a second person? He was suggesting that he was going to get $50,000 to $60,000 around Christmas time. That suggests that half of the money was going to someone else. And, that DNA kind of closed the case on Helgoth, right? Well, not so fast. This is where we have to talk about the critical scientific element of this case, the DNA itself, because that unknown male DNA profile is both the key piece of evidence supporting the intruder theory and perhaps the single biggest reason why no one, including Helgoth, has ever been charged. From JonBenet's autopsy, the subsequent forensic test, investigators found something crucial: traces of DNA from an unknown male. And I'm saying traces, specifically a small sample of male DNA was found mixed with JonBenet's blood in the underwear that she was wearing. And additional touch DNA was later identified on other parts of her clothing. This DNA did not belong to John or Patsy or any of the Ramseys. And when this was first discovered in early 1997, it seemed to be a game changer. Suddenly, there was this hard evidence pointing to someone outside of the family. In fact, it was so significant that some police reportedly didn't even share the results right away. The DNA finding came in within weeks, but word of it took months to reach the DA's office, indicative of how fractured the investigation process really was. If you fast forward to 2008, that unknown male DNA profile is still unmatched. I mentioned touch DNA, and I think it's important to realize that, when people manufacture these clothes that we wear, like they get processed somewhere, somebody touches them. And somewhere on here is touch DNA. That's what touch DNA is. It could be, a little speck of something from someone who has never actually met me, and their DNA could be on my clothing. That's what touch DNA is. And I still think that the sample is inaccurate. It's not correct DNA. I don't think it was sampled properly, and it might have gotten mixed up from another case. There's a lot of scenarios where, the police aren't going to want to be like, oh, sorry guys, we had the wrong DNA this entire time. It belonged to somebody else for another case, and another killer got away too because of it. Of course, they're not going to say anything like that. But, JonBenet's clothing was bought from a department store where people look through those clothes and touch everything. Some small speck of DNA could have come from either a factory worker or someone who had been, considering buying it at the store. For all I know, somebody could have taken it out of the packaging and put it back in. There's all kinds of scenarios for touch DNA and how it could have possibly gotten on there. Was it actually DNA from the killer? It may not even have been DNA from the killer. It could have been just a random bit of trace touch DNA. But there has not been any DNA matched to this. It's been run through the CODIS, that's the FBI criminal database, and other databases. Killers like the Golden State Killer got caught through DNA that was traced back to relatives of him. I want to say it was through Ancestry DNA. They have ways of finding stuff. And that John Mark Carr guy, he confessed to a reporter for over 3 years before they actually pursued him, but his DNA didn't match either. And now he's somewhere else, probably harassing other children. But the sample could have been just degraded, or, they pulled the wrong sample. So where does that leave Michael Helgoth in light of this DNA? Officially, the DNA evidence has cleared him. We have to assume that this unknown DNA, whoever it belongs to, must be the killer. I mean, do we have to believe that? But it didn't match Helgoth. Could it have been from his partner? Maybe. Could it have been somebody else's DNA entirely? It could have been. There is so many clues that suggest Helgoth is the killer, but the DNA kind of debunks all of it. And, it makes me wonder, what if they left the DNA out? Who would they suspect? Who would they think the killer is? If they just left the DNA out, who would be charged with the crime? Leave out, I don't know, this scenario with this guy, I can imagine him writing a 3-page ransom note, especially if he's talking to his coworkers about getting a bunch of money. It seems like somebody who doesn't actually know much about, you want to give as little information to people when you're doing a ransom note. I mean, I wouldn't know that either until reading about this case. But apparently almost every other ransom note that's ever been turned in is like a sentence, 2, maybe a small paragraph. It's very short and straight to the point. Give us the money by this time and this will happen. This was a 3-page, very dramatic letter. It sounded like something out of a story. You can find the letter online. You can read it. And this letter was signed SBTC. They thought this was some kind of terrorist group at the time, and then finding a hat with that same, initials on it at Helgoth's house. That can't be coincidence, right? I mean, it's just too weird. I don't think they ever figured out what those initials actually stood for. But like I said, the DA said, "Hey, guys, we've narrowed down the killer. We know who you are. We're about to narrow out. We're going to, take everyone else off the list but you, and we're coming for you. And then the guy with a lot of evidence in his possession, it winds up dead. There's others conspiracies like who killed the guy. If who would have motive to kill the guy? The partner. There's darker conspiracies on who killed them too. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know. I don't know. But it's been 29 years, almost 30 years, and they don't know who killed JonBenet Ramsey. And it all is due to this DNA and a botched crime scene. The police detective who came out there just let people in, and that's like the one thing you don't do. But yeah, guys, if you like this video, go ahead, like it, obviously, share it with your friends, watch the playback, all of that good stuff. But if you don't agree with my theory, you're free to share your own theory. I was hoping more people would be on here, but I guess it's 9 o'clock in Alaska, so obviously it's very late everywhere else, and that's fine. I am doing a live on Sunday. I don't know that I'm going to do one tomorrow at all, but I do also, if you like watching people play games, you can check out my other side channel, Dimension Beyond the Veil. And I've been telling ghost stories there when I can't tell true crime stories. I also have been playing Mario Kart World for fun. So you guys can come hang out there too and watch stuff like that if the true crime gets too heavy for you. But until next time, be kind, stay vigilant, and always question the truth. I say that for one reason, really. I don't mean question the truth as in, the truth is true, but everything that we're told is true is fair game to question, But I hope you guys all have a good night and, give your loved ones a hug. Just let them know you care. And, hopefully stuff like this story doesn't, hit too close to home. Kids should be off limits to killers, in my opinion. I think anyone really should be off limits, but especially kids. It's really hard to talk about children being harmed in any way for me. So I do appreciate those of you who are here. I really do. And I know there hasn't been any comments really, but definitely you're still appreciated. But you guys have a good night. I'll catch you in the next video.